Hello, leaders of the world. Welcome to Spread Love in Organizations, the podcast for purpose-driven healthcare leaders striving to make life better around the world by leading their teams with genuine care, servant leadership, and love. I'm Naji, your host for this episode, and I have the pleasure to be with Aden Eyob, a leader in mindset. Aden is a clinical neuroscientist and author of the book on mind training, The Secret of Positive Living. She is the founder and CEO of Mind Medication, a fusion of neuroscience-psychology and spirituality-based mindset consulting and speaker service that helps uncover people's why, unlock potential, and free limiting beliefs to achieve the impossible. Her customers include CEOs, entrepreneurs, and celebrities. Aden's mission is a world free from limiting beliefs. I'm sure you're eager, like me, to hear from Aden and learn more from what she does. Aden, I am excited to have you with me today.
Thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to be here.
First, I'd love to hear your personal story, Aden. How you became leader in mindset.
Yes, so it's a bit of a whirlwind journey. I think for me, honestly, I started when I was young, a 6-year-old self. I've always had visions and dreams of being in leadership, taking control of my circumstances. I remember having arguments with my grandmother about the house rules and challenging her. And she's like, "Don't question me. This is how things are done." I'm like, "But you don't know why you're doing it. So I will continue to question you." So obviously, naturally, that got me in a lot of trouble, but I was willing to sort of challenge the status quo, starting with my grandmother, and then also led into school and also in the workplace, challenging the status in terms of what a leadership looks like. There's diversity in leadership, but the typical way to lead for me was always something that if I don't understand the why, then I'm going to be the one to ask those questions, even if it does come with a little bit of a blowback, because that's how change begins. And so really, I started my journey in academia. I studied neuroscience and psychology. So I worked within the space of academic research, but I found that it was a little bit too stagnant for my form of leadership. And so I moved into business. I went into pharmaceuticals. I spent a great deal of time doing clinical trial management and, working with pharma. There's a lot of mindset shifts that must happen. And so I found that as an opportunity, it was more of a challenge, but an opportunity to lead better, because what I was seeing in my role as a clinical trial manager was ideas that I've had, but there were stagnant and very stale ways of doing things. And so there was a conflict in how I could lead and really do my best. And so there were opportunities in that I created so that I was able to bring different perspectives into the organization. But ultimately, my vision was a little bit too much more than for that space. And so I found myself going down the entrepreneurial path to really explore how far I can take my vision and really lead, but most importantly, lead myself so then I can lead others better, right? Leaders are learners. Leaders are ones who know how to lead themselves first. So in doing so, that's how I found myself in the maze of entrepreneurship and navigating that, the ups and downs of building a business, but also bringing others along in that process and journey and managing people's different mindset and change states. And so I think for me, the mindset element really stemmed from my childhood. I grew up in a rather chaotic environment. My mother was mentally unwell. I've had various family members who suffered from mental illness. And so I was just very curious about why they were thinking that way and how they were, I guess, in that sense, unable to really lead themselves because of the mental illnesses that they had. And so that's really where the mindset element came. But in all my studies, I then also realized the power of the mind. And in terms of even leadership, a lot of times we make such emotive-based decisions. And so my journey down the mindset realm really stemmed from the fact of really wanting to understand how we think and how our thoughts and emotions and behaviors are all really correlated, and how that really plays out into how we lead ourselves and lead others.
Well, thank you so much, Aden, for sharing your journey and how you got there. There's different pieces we will discuss, obviously, between entrepreneurship, your work in the pharma and in development, and clinical trials. But I can't but start ask about the secret for positive living. This is the title of your book. So can you share with us what's the secret?
So the secret, really, the formula is the thought plus emotion equals behavior. And so oftentimes when faced with challenges, is actually an opportunity to grow and adapt and learn. So the environment that we're placed in is for a reason. There's a purpose to it. And so when you understand the formula of that, really the seed is the thought that you're thinking about that environment that's going to play the emotion and then play the behavior. That's what's going to happen. And so even if the environment is not conducive for growth or for a healthy form of leadership, you have the ability to apply the growth mindset by applying the principle of thought plus emotion equals behavior. So when you change the thought to be positive intentionally, that's how you change the emotions and then behavior. Because oftentimes, in terms of neuroscience, our brain is really hardwired to have a negativity bias. And so we're 4 times more likely to hold on to bad situations. And that plays out into our leadership. And so when you apply the secret formula of adapting that negative bias into a positive by intentional thoughts of positivity, and that comes with practicing mindfulness, which isn't something that's typically associated with leadership, but is really relevant and pertinent. What that happens is then it frees up that negativity bias so that it's positive, and then the emotions will correlate with that, and then so forth the behavior. And so the part of being positive is a choice, and as resilient leaders, the choice is, do you want to stay stagnant, or do you want to take this stagnant opportunity and turn it into an opportunity to bring light into a situation, a broad perspective, a new horizon for yourself and for others?
So you talk about mindfulness, right, in this idea of bringing positivity to the thought. So I love how you framed it: thoughts, emotions equal behavior. In this world of constant change, movement, and unfortunately sad news, right? We can't but think of the tensions in the world, wars around the world happening, and people suffering. How are you helping out leaders think positively? So, and if you have like a specific example or exercise you can give us for also people listening to us today on how they can foster this positive thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So the framework that I really apply all these principles is called the calm mindset system. So it stands for clarity, accountability of goals, love, and motivation. So the clarity element is really digging into your why. Why are you here? What is your purpose? Right? It's not money. Money is just the tool. What is it that you are gifted to do? So we do a lot of reflective exercises to really dig deep, and a bit of mind mapping to get to the why. So oftentimes it's just the what and the how that people get stuck on and really don't understand the why. So the clarity comes with really understanding your why. The accountability of goals is actually applying measurable ways of testing your why and your desire. So it's about understanding what your desires are and then breaking them down into goals, because the goals are just the vehicles that drive the why, which is the desire. And so there's a system and a process that I've developed that basically allows you to push forward with getting your desires, but in a very strategic and tangible way. And then love is really about self-care, because especially as leaders, we're often last to take care of ourselves because we're busy taking care of everybody else and fighting fire. But in order to be a really effective leader and resilient in times of chaos, it's really important to take care of yourself first. So we look at ways in which we can bring holistic mindfulness practices, mind, body, spirit. So that looks like, for example, one of my clients has decision fatigue constantly because being pulled in different directions, and what that did over time was that they were just not able to make any more decisions. They were tapped out, they were burnt out. And so by really focusing on the self-care element, that looked like setting healthy boundaries, saying no to things that they may look like good opportunities, but long term, when we strategize it, it doesn't work in terms of where their why is. It also looks like setting nighttime routines. So I call them power habits. So morning and nighttime routines, creating these buffers that help them to stay in a calm mindset. So in the morning, the first thing that they're doing is taking care of themselves. And then the chaos of the day or leading the day, and then at night taking care of themselves. And I call this like the calm sandwich. So when you're in ability that the first thing you're doing is taking care of yourself, you're in a better position to take care of others. But when the first thing you're doing is social media or so forth, that puts the mind at a state of sort of anxiety. It puts us in high beta state. And so with the calm mindset system, and particularly the love element of the component, what we're doing is creating bespoke rituals so that they're able to stay in that alpha theta state of mindset, and then be able to really make better decisions and really take care of themselves. And then for motivation is really identifying their motivators. Are they intrinsically motivated, extrinsically motivated, and how that will play into their self-leadership, but then leading their teams as well, and understanding their teams better. So if somebody else is different to them, it's not an opposition, but an opportunity to work together and understand that. But that only comes first when they understand how they operate as a leader.
I love it. And, it seems simple as you're saying it, but many times I'm sure you're hearing from leaders, like, we don't have time for this. Like, seriously, mindfulness in a busy day, like, how can I do this? And sadly, many times it happens, as you talked about one of the leaders you're helping, it happens too late, right? So any small habits or tricks that you think as leaders we can kind of put in our schedule for us to be intentional about it and be better with it?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I say is like the box breathing. The Navy SEALs use it. So if it's good enough for them and they're in high stress environments, it's definitely good enough for most leaders. So it's a very simple box breathing exercise. So imagine yourself as a box. You breathe in for 4 count, you breathe out for 4 count, you breathe in for 4 count, you breathe out for 4 count. And there's apps that can do it for you if you don't really want to like breathe and time at the same time. But what that does is it instantly takes the mind from high alert down to being calm. And so you're going within a span of 5 minutes, which I think we can all say we have in our schedule, from that state of high beta to alpha theta. And so, and especially when you're in a situation where you're having to make decisions on the snap, this is a great tool that's going to help you to make that decision a little bit more strategically and with a broader perspective, as opposed to just that's emotive based. Okay, I'm just going to make a decision because this is where I'm at in terms of my feelings. So less emotions, more logic and wisdom.
Love it. The box breathing. I've been using the 2-2-2. I don't know if you're familiar with it, like 2 minutes of mindfulness, 2 minutes of planning and prioritizing. So it's an additional one. I'll try to use the box breathing.
And I think just generally pause. It sounds so basic, but when you're pausing, think about your brain. It's like a Google server. It's constantly churning out data, right? The minute you pause, it's almost like a refresh. So if you know that you're feeling, your body's a great signal. It tells you where it's at. If you're struggling, there's a reason for that. So when you pause, take 5 minutes out to just breathe in, breathe out. What happens is then your mind is then able to see a situation that you may be mulling over in a different angle. But also asking yourself open-ended question, like, why am I feeling this way? Is this true? Challenging your own thought processes will oftentimes also help you to come up with a better answer.
So this was the L part, like the love part of your cloud framework that I really like. I wanted to go to the clarity of the why. So, and this is part that you research, you worked on, and obviously you're coaching people on it. And as you shared also in your experience in healthcare, I'd love also to understand, is this why still kind of interlinked between healthcare and what you're doing today? And it's really what I'm interested to hear your thoughts on is, we all know the importance of this why and how it will unlock the potential, right? And what we can do and the possibilities for ourselves, but also for the teams we're leading. But many times it's limited, right? Like, people keep on doing their jobs without thinking of it. What for you is kind of this limiting factor? Why aren't we taking it to the next level a little bit more broadly for leaders?
Yeah, so it's down to fear of the unknown. uncertainty. So as a lot of the leaders I've worked with, it's all for them, it's become more of mitigating risks, right? So less of the uncertainty. But as leaders, that's exactly what we're supposed to do, is go forward when there are seasons of uncertainty, just like the pandemic we've endured, right? And so a lot of the times when a process isn't working, it's not being changed because of the effort that it will bring in actually changing that at an energetic level, at a strategic level, at implementation level. But deep down, it's that fear of what if it doesn't work? And then the blame is going to go back on the leader, right? So it's that real internal fear of, is this now going to be a reflection of me as a person and my identity? And I'm no longer a qualified leader because I've set this new process, it didn't work, and the backlash is too much. So I rather just maintain the status quo, even though it's not working. And so it's often down to fear of the unknown, but also perfectionism. So if you're gonna start something new, it's gonna come with a lot of unknowns. It's going to come with a lot of imperfect methodologies. And so for someone who is a leader that borders on having that perfectionist tendencies and high standards, it's going to be a clash, because they're going to have to now face leading teams who may not perform to the standard that they're accustomed to because of the new processes that have been implemented. So a lot of it is perfectionism, fear of the unknown, but also procrastination plays a big role as well. There's so much as leaders we're having to do. Oftentimes the stuff that we're not certain becomes low on the level of priorities, but they're the ones that actually will push us further into our purpose-driven leadership.
I love it and really agree with you. I'm in a great sessions on improvisation in leadership, and really boils down to, as you said, like this fear of the unknown, and in fact the importance of embracing uncertainty, because this is usually where leadership is needed
Well, that's the thing. We're leading, right? If you're a leader, you're leading. So what are you leading? You're creating a new path. And I think COVID was a really great opportunity for leadership to really show itself, right? There's various types of leadership, and the one I tend to ascribe to is more on the resilient type of leadership, just because of the life I've led. There's been a series of challenges of having to overcome, but as leaders, the common core of us is that we're paving a new path. You can't pave a new path if you're still on the same path that has already been paved by someone else.
Talking about the why and the purpose, you worked in pharma, and usually many of us in the industry, healthcare industry, even larger than only the biotech or the pharma industry, we're really driven by this purpose of making life better for patients and trying hard to improve patients' lives by bringing, novel medications or services for the communities. Have you sensed this, and how would you describe what you've experienced in the pharma world? Is it different from now being an entrepreneur and working with leaders across different industries? What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, so I think, the healthcare industry and so the leaders I've experienced it, they have great intentions. They definitely do want to help. But what I have also seen is that somewhere down the line, it gets lost with all the logistics of it, with all the bureaucracy and all the egos that go into that, and also the bottom line. So unfortunately, people, a lot of the people I've worked with, they start off with that intention of, I'm going to lead, I'm going to bring change, healthcare equality into this, and then they get up the career ladder, and as they're getting there, it's almost like a little piece of them dies along the process, and then their leadership starts to dim, and by the time they're there, they're no longer leading from their heart, they're no longer leading from purpose. It's pretty much, let's just make bottom line work for us, as opposed to why they were really there to begin with, was to really create opportunity for the masses who can't get the healthcare that they need to have that. And so and then when I look at it from, entrepreneurs, they're very much driven on the passion, right? They're fueled by that why, and that's why they're still able to keep pushing forward. And so a lot of the times when I've worked with various different leaders, what I'm seeing is that there's a gap between their why and what they're doing currently. they've sort of lost that passion, or they've lost the desire to continue to pursue that because of the external challenges presented, whether that's the systems and structures of healthcare, where there's so many regulations as well. So how do they stay on track and be authentic leaders while still navigating the terrains of all the different regulations that come with the healthcare space?
Yeah, and this is definitely the focus of this podcast and my personal focus. We're fortunate enough to work in an industry that can literally change people's lives for the better. We should never forget about it. And I totally agree with you. Sometimes, down the lines and with things happening, operations, etc., we forget actually why we wake up every morning, which is trying to make life better for one patient at a time. So yeah, it's definitely my journey to making sure that as leaders, we constantly keep this in mind throughout all our decision process. Aden, I want to go now into a part of the podcast where I will give you a word and I want your reaction to it.
Okay.
So the first word is leadership.
Taking care of others for the greater good.
Love it. What about diversity?
Embracing the parts of you that you have not been aware or accustomed to.
Oh, wow. I love this framing. Can you share more?
Yes. So for me, when I think of diversity, so when I see people who come from different walks of life, that means there's a part of me that needs to learn, embrace, but it's a projection. So if I am reacting in a positive or negative way, it's oftentimes because there's a part of me that resonates with that person, either in a positive way or a negative way. But then it's also an opportunity to embrace it, because what you resist persists. So if there's somebody with a different thought than and I resist it, I'm now finding myself in a stuck state. But when I actually take the time to listen and hear what they're saying, oftentimes I'll hear part of me that may have been resisting to them. And then it's also creating an opportunity to create harmony. So that's an opportunity to embrace a new perspective that they've brought into my life, will then help me to lead better.
Love it. Mind medication.
Bringing a state of calm into a chaotic environment.
What about spread love in organizations?
Leading from heart rather than ego.
Thank you so much, Aden, for those reactions. Any final word of wisdom you have for leaders generally, but also healthcare leaders specifically, as you've been in this industry before your entrepreneurship journey around the world?
Yes, I think, it's not an easy space to bring change and healing to patients. And I think with leadership, it's also give yourself grace. You don't have to figure everything out in one day. You don't have to get everything right. What matters is the patient. Think of the patient first. If you can heal one person, that's leadership right there. Leadership isn't all about taking care of the world. One person at a time. So whenever you find yourself in situations of uncertainty, think about the effect you're going to have impact with just one person. And then that will be the ripple effect you will have with the mass.
Thank you so much, Aden, for being with me today and for this great inspirational chat.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me here. Such a great time.
Thank you all for listening to Spread Love in Organizations podcast. Drop us a review on your preferred podcast platform. Connect with us on SpreadLoveIO.com or on LinkedIn. Most importantly, spread love in your organizations and spread the word around you to inspire others and amplify this movement our world so desperately needs.